Hello everyone and welcome to Race Before Race Genealogies. My name is Urvashi Chakravarty. I'm an Associate Professor in the Department of English here at the University of Toronto, and along with the amazing Liza Blake, Liza please wave, I'm one of the local organisers for this iteration of Race Before Race. Sim Ong, Sim please wave, is our phenomenal conference assistant. So if you have any questions about anything at all on the ground, please don't hesitate to grab one of us and ask. So we'd like to begin firstly by thanking everyone for being here, for tuning in virtually from all across the world, and particularly for taking the time at the beginning of term to take part in what is the first in-person Race Before Race conference in, I think, 2.5 years. We're so grateful to you all for coming, and we're especially grateful to our speakers for making the journey and giving so generously of their time and their intellectual labour. So I do have several notes of thanks to make. The symposium would not be possible without the work of Liza and Sim and the incredible team at ACMRS, especially Leah Newsom, McDonough, Ruben Espinoza and Ayana Thompson. Ayana sadly can't be with us today, but we're so grateful to all of them, and we're also really indebted to the sponsors of this conference, especially the Social Sciences and Humanities Research Council of Canada, who provided us with a connection grant, the Jackman Humanities Institute, who provided a Programme for the Arts grant, and the University of St Michael's College, who wonderfully sponsored a reception last night at which we were able to meet and talk with some of you. We're also indebted to the many, many departments who are providing funding at the University of Toronto. And this is a long list, so I hope you'll forgive me. It will take quite a long time to read out. But we do want to make sure to thank everyone by name, and I hope it also sort of demonstrates the scope of the support at the university and how much we appreciate all of these units who sort of supported it and signed on. So we're really grateful to the Office of the Vice President International, New College, the Department of English at the University of Toronto Scarborough, the Department of English and Drama at the University of Toronto Mississauga, the Department of English at the University of Toronto St George, the Graduate Department of English at the UT, the Outreach Conference and Colloquia Fund at UTM, the UTM Working Group Fund, the UTSC Working Group Fund, the Office of the Vice Principal Research, UTSC, the Office of the Dean and Vice Principal Academic, UTSC, Office of the Vice Principal Research, UTM, the Faculty of Information, the Canada Research Chair, Milton Seminar, the Centre for Medieval Studies, the Women's and Gender Studies Institute, University College, Trinity College, the Critical Digital Humanities Initiative, the Department of Classics at U of T St George, the Centre for Comparative Literature, the Collaborative Programme in Book History and Print Culture, the McLuhan Centre for Centre and Technology, the Centre for Renaissance and Reformation Studies, and the Centre for the Study of the United States. So as you can tell from all of those names, a lot of departments signed on and supported and sponsored the conference, and we're really grateful. But I think it also speaks to the interdisciplinary nature of the collective and the endeavour, for which we are very, very grateful. So I'll begin with a couple of logistical notes and reminders, especially since we're convening in person after quite a long time and in a pandemic. So as a reminder, we are asking everyone to mask indoors. Thank you so much for doing so. And if you've forgotten to bring a mask, there are masks by the front door on the registration table. We're keeping the windows open as much as possible, but may have to close them briefly in case of weather or musical interludes, which, whilst lovely, make it quite difficult to hear the speakers. We do have coffee and snacks at the back on the right as you enter the room. On the left, you'll find books by our speakers and a QR code for discounts if you'd like to purchase the books. There are also flyers with a discount code for the first 2 books in the Race Before Race book series, published by Pen Press, whose editor, Jenny Tan, is kindly here with us today. There's also a table for HMRS Press, and the Director of Publishing Futures, Jeff Way, is here as well. If you need to nip to the washroom in Canadian parlance, the all-gender room is at the back of the hall, and the men's room is 1 floor down and the women's room is 2 floors down. So if you just go through the door behind me and to the right, you'll find the stairs. Please do pick up your name badge at the registration desk, as well as a programme and a notebook and a map made up by Sim, thank you again, with suggestions for nearby places for lunch and coffee and so on marked up. Okay, I think that's all the logistics. We do want to say just a quick word about the format, again, since it's been quite a long time. As you'll see from the schedule, each speaker has 45 minutes. They'll deliver a paper of about 20 to 25 minutes, and then in some instances, there'll be a directed conversation or workshop. In some instances, we'll move more directly into Q&A. And each presentation will be followed by a 15-minute break. We'll have 2 presentations this morning by Miles Greer and Wallace Cleaves, and then we'll break for lunch at 11:45, and we'll reconvene this afternoon at 1:45 for presentations by our next 2 speakers. We do have one schedule change, which is marked in the insert in your programme. Nicole Spigner is sadly no longer able to join us, so Tamara Walker will be presenting tomorrow morning rather than this afternoon. And please note that we won't be introducing the speakers individually, but you can read their bios in the programme and learn more about their amazing work there. And finally, we encourage live tweeting throughout the event. Please use the hashtag #R4R Toronto. Finally, I wanted to say a few words about the theme of this symposium, about genealogies, and why that term in particular obtains for this iteration of Race Before Race. I'd like to begin by welcoming you all to Race Before Race Genealogies. But in many ways, it's not my place to welcome you. As a settler of colour and an immigrant to this land, I do respectfully acknowledge that this land is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis. I'm grateful to have the opportunity to live and work and learn on this land, but I think anew of the work that remains for settlers, such as myself, to undertake. Those genealogies of material dispossession, I think, are both recalled and obscured by the form of the land acknowledgement that can often function as the, quote, settler move to innocence, in the words of Tuck and Yang. And so even as I speak these words, I strive to remember that they convey a responsibility for those of us who are settlers, an ideal and an obligation to strive to be in good relation. The work that we do in these rooms and on this land is underwritten by the genealogies of settler colonialism, whose legacies not only persist, they can actually be reaffirmed by the settlers' use of the land acknowledgement. So I think the genealogies of our histories here, our embodiments of the work that we seek to undertake, are central to these difficult conversations. The theme that organises this symposium, Genealogies, strives to excavate these layers of racial formation and to reveal the structures that scaffold the racial and racist conditions that inform so many of our lives today. And so I want to meditate, if I may, for a few moments on that term. These genealogies are historical, archival, material, cultural, and political. They're powerful and palimpsestic, even as they are often insidious and invisible. Last night's evening with Professor Cooper was, I think, an extraordinary way to open these conversations, and we're indebted to her both for that stunning reading and for her ongoing scholarly and artistic work. The reading, I think, opens up an astonishing and generative entry point to so many of the questions that this symposium will consider. What are the histories of slavery, their imprints and fragments? How do we trace the forms of community and possibility, retrieve the humanity, and, to use a term that came up yesterday, tenderness, that survives the violence of the archive? Where do the histories of imperialism persist in the present? How does thinking with different geographies shift the genealogies we think we know? Disciplines, of course, also derive their own genealogies, their habits of thought, their epistemologies. Sometimes these disciplinary genealogies are generative, sometimes they reflect their own investments. It is no accident, I think, that when we consider the term genealogies, we often immediately think of its meaning as a line of descent, as a lineage. It conveys perhaps a putative sense of the biological or the sanguinal, of the inheritance of blood or ancestry or property. All of these things, as we know, comprise precisely the sites where the fictions of race translate into the operations of power. The place of descent, of genealogy, is deeply insidious in the history of race-making. But perhaps, too, genealogy might be the site of community and of kinship, as long as we do not seek the reparative rather than the relational. There are then perhaps three aspects of genealogies that I'd like to end by highlighting, if I may. Firstly, the potential of genealogies as methodological possibilities, messy, interwoven, even contestatory, but generative, not decisive. Secondly, genealogies as palimpsestic, as layered, sometimes obscured, but always underwriting the structures that scaffold our world today. And thirdly, genealogies as a provocation, as a set of interpretive tools that not only strives to excavate the past, but to resist it, which reveals the alternatives for our future. I'd like to close these remarks, therefore, by revisiting, if I may, the words of Lucille Clifton, whose poem, Why Some People Be Mad at Me Sometimes, was the quotation we chose for this conference. Why some people be mad at me sometimes. They ask me to remember, but they want me to remember their memories, and I keep on remembering mine. We are so fortunate to have with us 8 speakers who over the next 2 days will illuminate new pathways through our histories and our genealogies, and will, I know, model new ways of thinking for us all, beginning with our first speaker, Miles Greer. Please join me in welcoming our speakers. Thank you.